Your services are no longer required. Those words hit me like a wrench to the gut. 19 years of keeping F-35 pilots alive, and they fired me for refusing to sign off on radar systems that could get someone killed. I'm Bradley Coleman, 51 years old, and until 10:30 that Tuesday morning, I was VP of Operations at Apex Defense Systems in Phoenix. Let me back up. Drop a comment telling me where you're from and hit subscribe if you want to hear more stories about corporate backstabbing and the sweet taste of revenge. I was sitting in that sterile conference room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. The mahogany table I'd helped select 5 years ago when we moved into the new facility. Around it sat men I'd worked alongside for nearly 2 decades. Men whose kids I'd taught to change oil. Men who'd called me at midnight when critical systems went down at Nellis Air Force Base. But this morning, none of them could meet my eyes, except Rick Hayes. CEO Rick Hayes stared straight at me, his expression blank, but I caught that slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. Satisfaction. "We've decided to restructure the operations division," Rick said with that rehearsed corporate authority. "Jason will assume your responsibilities effective immediately." Jason Hayes, the golden boy who'd been here exactly 8 months. Rick's son, fresh out of ASU with an MBA and zero understanding of what actually keeps military aircraft in the sky. The same kid who asked me last week what ITAR stood for. I managed my voice sounding distant even to myself. "And when did the board vote on this?" I looked at Curtis Palmer, our CFO, who'd texted me yesterday about grabbing beer after work. Suddenly, his notepad became fascinating. "Emergency session last night," Curtis mumbled. "An emergency session I wasn't invited to." They were replacing me with a 29-year-old whose biggest achievement was being born with the right last name. "HR has your separation package ready," Rick said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "We're not unreasonable, Brad. But unreasonable people at least admit what they're doing." I didn't touch the envelope. 19 years, I said quietly. "I was here when we had 12 employees in that converted hangar in Scottsdale. I designed the diagnostic protocols that landed us the Nellis contract. I flew to Ramstein Air Base with pneumonia to save the European maintenance deal when nobody else understood the systems." The room went silent. I could taste their guilt. "We value your contributions," Rick recited like a robot, "but Apex needs fresh leadership. The defense landscape is evolving. Fresh leadership." What he really meant was his son needed a corner office. What he meant was I'd become too much of a stickler for quality control. What he meant was I'd become a problem. I thought about my son Danny, 17 years old, already accepted into Arizona State's engineering program, the tuition bills that would start hitting in 18 months, the promise I'd made to my late wife Sarah 3 years ago as cancer ate away at her, that I'd make sure our boy had every opportunity she never got. "I'll clear out my office," I said, standing up on surprisingly steady legs. "Take your time," Rick replied with synthetic kindness. "Security will help you." Security. Like I might steal classified specs, like I hadn't spent 19 years building every system in this place. I walked back to my office, past curious stares from my team. Not my team anymore. Word travels fast in aerospace corridors. By lunch, my closest allies would be sending Jason congratulatory emails. My office overlooked the flight line where we tested avionics systems. The view I rarely had time to appreciate suddenly felt foreign. Awards on the wall, family photos, mostly Danny and late wife Sarah, emergency work boots under the desk. Relics from a life I'd just been exiled from. I grabbed a box from the supply closet and started the humiliating task of packing up 19 years. The nameplate from my door. The torque wrench I used on my first F-16 engine rebuild. A photo of our original engineering team most long gone to other contractors. My throat tightened as I reached for the small cactus on my windowsill. A gift from Danny when I made VP. "Tough as you, Dad," he'd said. "Nothing can kill it." The kid had been dealing with his mom's death by finding strength in everything around us. This little plant had survived my neglect, thriving despite minimal attention, unlike my personal relationships, unlike apparently my career. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Lisa Turner, my assistant of 7 years, stood in the doorway with red eyes. "They want me to work for Jason," she whispered. I told them I needed time. "Take the job, Lisa," I said, surprised how calm I sounded. "You've got your mom's medical bills. I get it." She nodded, tears falling. "They're saying you mishandled the radar upgrade specs. That quality control was slipping. That's why the lies had already started. Rewriting history to justify betrayal. We both know the truth, I said quietly. Those specs I red flagged could have caused system failures at 30,000 feet. Pilot's dead because we cut corners to save money. I know. Everyone knows. She hesitated. Jason wants access to all your files, your contacts, everything. Of course he did. Jason couldn't do my job without my entire playbook. Tell him company policy requires a formal IT request, I replied. Two could play the corporate procedure game. After Lisa left, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, not wanting to hear fake sympathy from coworkers too spineless to show up, but something made me answer. Bradley Coleman. Brad, it's Colonel Sandra Morrison. My breath stopped. Colonel Sandra Morrison, CEO of Titan Aerospace Solutions, Apex's biggest rival. The woman Rick liked to call that military hard-ass in a pantsuit. The executive whose innovations had been cutting into our market share for 3 years. Colonel Morrison, I said carefully. This is unexpected. I'll cut to the chase, she said, her voice sharp but warm. I heard what happened. News travels fast in defense circles. I want to meet today. My mind raced. Meeting with Apex's main competitor on the day I got fired would violate several clauses in my employment contract. But I wasn't employed anymore. Why? I asked. Because Apex just made the stupidest decision in their corporate history, and I want to be the one who benefits. Starbucks on Camelback Road. Come alone and we'll discuss turning this setback into the best opportunity you've ever had. The line went dead. I sat there clutching my phone, looking at the box of my belongings. 19 years reduced to a cardboard container. They thought they could discard me after 2 decades of loyalty. Rick had always underestimated me. He saw me as the dependable workhorse who'd absorb any abuse and keep building better systems. He never recognized that my agreeable nature was a choice, not weakness. I picked up my phone and saved Colonel Morrison's number, then slid the severance package into my bag without opening it. Whatever they offered wouldn't compensate for what they stole. Security arrived. 2 guys I'd personally approved last year. They looked apologetic but determined. Just doing our job, Mr. Coleman, the older one said quietly. I know, Shane, I replied, lifting my box. Everyone was just doing their job. As we walked through the main workspace, conversations stopped and keyboards froze. Some looks were sympathetic, most cautious, a few calculating how my downfall might benefit them. Near the elevator, I spotted Jason standing with 2 board members, already playing the part. His expensive suit couldn't hide his fundamental cluelessness. He nodded at me with practiced solemnity. I should have walked past with dignity. Instead, I paused. Congratulations, Jason, I said loud enough to gather attention. Quick question before I go. What does ITAR stand for? His face went red. The board members looked confused. I'm sure Jason knows all about export regulations, one offered hastily. Of course, I smiled thinly. International traffic and arms regulations. Since it governs everything we do with foreign military sales, I thought he might want to refresh everyone's memory. Jason's jaw clenched. International traffic in. The words died. Arms regulations, I finished. Established 19076. The manual's in the red binder on your new desk. You might want to read it before your call with the German procurement office Thursday. They don't mess around. Without waiting for response, I continued to the elevator. Small victory, but it felt good reminding everyone what they were losing. Outside, the Arizona heat hit like opening an oven. 19 years walking into that building, now banned from it. My keycard already disabled. Email locked. 19 years erased in 19 minutes. I said in my pickup truck. A practical Ford F-150 I'd chosen for utility over flash, and let myself feel the full weight of betrayal. The anger came hard and deep. I wasn't just some employee they could replace. I was the institutional memory of that company. But as the rage settled, something darker stirred, a voice whispering, "They think this is your ending. Show them it's your beginning." I thought about calling Danny, telling him what happened, but what would I say? Hey son, Dad just lost the job that's supposed to pay for your college because I wouldn't compromise safety standards. The kid had been through enough losing his mother. He didn't need to worry about his future disappearing too. Sarah would have known what to say. She always did. 3 years since cancer took her, and I still reached for my phone to call her when the world tilted sideways. She'd have been proud of me today, standing up to Rick's corner cutting. Even if it cost me everything. Do the right thing, Brad. she'd always said. The rest will work itself out. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, straightened my tie, and started the engine. Time to see if she was right. I had a meeting that could change everything. The Starbucks on Camelback was busy with the lunch crowd. I found Colonel Morrison in a corner booth, looking exactly like what she was, a retired Air Force officer who'd never lost her command presence. At 54, she carried herself like someone who'd earned every star and stripe. "Brad," she said, standing to shake hands. "Thanks for coming." Her handshake was firm without being aggressive. Everything about her radiated competence. "Curiosity got the better of me," I replied, taking my seat. "And honestly, my schedule just cleared up." She smiled at that. "Let's order, then talk about how Apex just handed me the competitive advantage I've been waiting for." I ordered black coffee. She got some complicated latte. "I needed the bite. I've followed your work for years," she said once we were alone. 19 years building Apex's operational backbone. Their maintenance protocols, their quality systems, their client relationships. "You are Apex, Brad?" "Not Rick. Not that board of golf buddies, you." Her words pressed against wounds, still raw. "Apparently not," I replied, unable to hide the bitterness. "Apparently I'm replaceable by someone whose main qualification is sharing DNA with the CEO. Rick's always been an idiot," Sandra said with casual disdain. "But his stupidity is my opportunity. I want you at Titan, Brad. Not just as an executive, as a partner." I blinked. Partner, equity, board seat, freedom to build systems without Rick's ego-choking innovation. She leaned forward. "I've watched you solve problems at Apex that we're still struggling with. Imagine what you could accomplish without interference." The offer was staggering. But 19 years had taught me caution. Why trust me with that much? "I've been your competition for all you know. This could be some elaborate setup." Sandra laughed, a genuine sound that drew glances. "Rick doesn't have that kind of creativity. Besides, I recognize something in you I know intimately, the look of someone who's been underestimated their entire career. Someone who worked twice as hard for half the recognition." She set her cup down precisely. "Someone who reached their breaking point." Her words hit like revelation. I had reached my breaking point. 19 years of swallowing condescension, of watching my innovations get credited to others, of seeing political maneuvering triumph over competence. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked. Sandra's eyes sharpened. "The Nellis F-35 maintenance contract comes up for renewal in 4 months. It's worth $240 million annually now with the expanded squadrons. You designed that entire system." I nodded. "I knew every bolt, every diagnostic sequence, every maintenance interval. More than that, I knew the people. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, who ran the night shift, Captain Williams, who pushed for the upgraded targeting systems, Colonel Peterson, who trusted my recommendations over anyone else's because I'd never steered him wrong. I want it," she said simply, "and you know exactly how to get it. The Nellis contract, Apex's crown jewel. I'd built those relationships component by component, solving integration nightmares, managing budget overruns, keeping aircraft mission ready. I knew every technician, every procurement officer, every pilot who depended on those systems. My non-compete, I began, is limited," Sandra finished smoothly. "My legal team reviewed standard Apex contracts. They can block you from joining competitors for 18 months. They can prevent you from recruiting staff, but they can't stop you from consulting for their clients." The loophole was brilliant. Consulting for Nellis wouldn't breach my agreement if structured properly. And if Nellis switched vendors after benefiting from my expertise, pure coincidence. "Still," I said slowly, "partnership is a big offer for someone you barely know." Sandra placed her cup down again. "Because half of something exceptional beats all of something mediocre. Because I've built Titan by elevating talent others foolishly discard. And because," her voice hardened, "I've waited 4 years to see Rick Hayes' face when he loses Nellis. When he realizes his biggest mistake wasn't firing you, it was creating an enemy who knows every weakness he hides." Her vendetta ran deep, worth investigating later. "For now, our goals aligned perfectly. I'd need guaranteed autonomy," I said. "My own team, no interference in client management. Done. And protection clauses if the partnership fails. Fair." I studied her face. "Why did they really fire me, Sandra? You have sources everywhere. What's the real reason?" She considered how much truth to share. "The F-22 radar upgrade project Rick announced last month. $4.2 billion contract, biggest in Apex history. But their new Chinese manufactured components have reliability issues, potential system failures that could ground entire squadrons. I knew about those components. I'd flagged concerns 6 months ago about electromagnetic interference patterns showing up in our lab tests. The frequency signatures were all wrong, creating blind spots that enemy aircraft could exploit. Rick had overruled me, seduced by the 40% cost savings. Jason won't catch the problems, I said quietly. He'll be dazzled by the surface metrics. Exactly. Rick needed you gone before final testing. You were the only engineer he couldn't pressure into ignoring the data. The betrayal cut deeper, realizing they'd removed me not despite my competence, but because of it. I wasn't inconvenient for nepotism. I was a threat to their reckless profiteering. I need time, I said finally. This isn't just changing jobs. It's rebuilding my entire career. Take 48 hours, she replied, sliding a business card across. But remember, your value peaks right now, while your insights are sharp and before they lock in the relationships you built. When I left that Starbucks, the desert air felt charged with possibility. My phone buzzed with messages from former colleagues, the brave ones risking contact. I ignored them, driving aimlessly through Phoenix as my mind worked every angle. I eventually stopped at South Mountain Park, the overlook where I sometimes escaped for lunch when the office felt suffocating. The valley spread below, Apex's building visible in the distance, its windows reflecting the afternoon sun like a beacon I could no longer reach. My phone rang. Dr. Amanda Cooper, Pentagon Procurement Liaison for the F-35 program. Brad, her voice carried concern. I heard the news. Are you all right? Amanda and I had worked together through 3 contract renewals, solved integration crises, navigated bureaucratic nightmares. More than professional respect, genuine partnership built on mutual trust and shared commitment to keeping pilots safe. Still processing, I admitted. How'd you hear? Rick called personally to assure me nothing would change with service quality. Said his son would personally manage our relationship going forward. Her tone made clear what she thought of that conversation. And what did you tell him? That we'd evaluate all options during the renewal process. She paused. Brad, we chose Apex because of you. Your understanding of our requirements, your transparency when problems arose, your solutions-first approach. Not because of corporate promises. My chest tightened with vindication. Someone understood what I brought to the table. The renewal process starts in 4 months, she continued. We'll be evaluating all vendors. We'd value insights from someone with your unique perspective. It was as direct an invitation as she could ethically offer. I may be available for independent consulting soon, I said carefully, once I navigate my transition. Excellent. I'll have my assistant reach out next week, she paused. For what it's worth, Brad, their loss is someone else's gain. After we hung up, I watched Apex's building as shadows lengthened. 19 years of my life in that glass structure. 19 years of achievement they thought they could erase. I thought about Rick's smug satisfaction, Jason's unearned confidence, the board members who wouldn't meet my eyes. All I'd sacrificed for a company that discarded me like worn-out equipment. But I also thought about Danny, coming home from school in a few hours, probably wondering why my truck was in the driveway early. How do you tell your 17-year-old son that the stable life you've built just crumbled? How do you explain that sometimes doing the right thing costs everything? Sarah's voice echoed in my memory. Do the right thing, Brad? The rest will work itself out. I made my decision. The next morning, I signed Sandra's partnership agreement. By afternoon, I had office space at Titan's Tempe location with a clear view of Apex across the valley. By evening, I drafted a consulting proposal for Nellis that carefully skirted my non-compete limits. But first, I had to tell Danny. I found him at the kitchen table, calculus homework spread everywhere. Looking so much like his mother when she concentrated that my chest ached. 3 years since Sarah died, and I still saw her in every expression he made. Dad? You're home early. He looked up, immediately reading my face. The kid had gotten good at reading trouble. Cancer teaches families to spot bad news fast. We need to talk, son. I sat down across from him studying this young man who'd handled his mother's death with more grace than I had. At 17, Danny had Sarah's intelligence and my stubbornness, a dangerous combination. They let me go today at Apex. His pencil stopped moving. Fired? Yeah. For refusing to approve safety shortcuts that could get pilots killed. Danny was quiet for a long moment, processing. So you did the right thing, yeah. But doing right doesn't always pay the bills. Mom always said the rest would work itself out if you did the right thing. Smart kid. She did say that. So what happens now? With college, He gestured vaguely at our life. I've got an opportunity, a partnership with another defense contractor. It's a risk, but it could be bigger than anything I had at Apex. Danny nodded slowly. You're going to make them pay for what they did. It wasn't a question. The kid understood me better than I'd realized. I'm going to show them what they lost. There's a difference. Good. Show them Dad's still got it. 3 days after getting fired, Lisa texted, Jason can't find F9-22 integration protocols. Board meeting disaster. Rick furious. I smiled. The files weren't missing. They were exactly where they belonged, filed under radar systems -if22 final on the shared drive. But without my institutional knowledge, without my mental map of 19 years of systems and procedures, navigating Apex was like wandering a maze blindfolded. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I'd simply stopped being their compass. 1 week later, I launched my consulting practice with Sandra's legal team's help. My first client, Nellis Air Force Base. My project, evaluating aircraft maintenance systems for upcoming contract renewal. 2 weeks in, another text from Lisa. Lost Holloman contract today. Jason missed critical deadline. Curtis panic mode. Holloman had been wavering for months. I'd been the one managing their concerns, addressing technical issues, keeping them loyal. Without me, the relationship collapsed. I wasn't poaching Apex's clients. The connections had always been personal, built on trust in my expertise, not their logo. Meanwhile, at Titan, I was building something unprecedented. Sandra kept her word. Total autonomy, unlimited resources, no micromanagement. I recruited 2 undervalued engineers from Apex, timing their moves to avoid non-solicitation issues. Together we developed maintenance protocols that combined Apex's proven methods with innovations I'd always wanted to implement. Advanced diagnostic algorithms that could predict component failures 3 weeks before they happened. Streamlined parts inventory systems that reduced aircraft downtime by 30%. Real-time performance monitoring that gave pilots instant feedback on system health. The results were immediate. By month 2, we'd secured contracts with 2 Air Force bases that had been on Apex's prospect list for years. The Nellis evaluation proceeded perfectly. Each analysis revealed Apex's vulnerabilities under Jason's management. Each comparison highlighted Titan's superior solutions to problems Nellis didn't even know existed. Then came the moment that crystallized everything. I was working late when my phone rang. Unknown number. Bradley Coleman. Brad, it's Rick. My blood froze, then boiled. The audacity. Rick, I said evenly, unexpected. I think we got off on the wrong foot with your transition. The board's been reassessing. We may have been hasty. Hasty, after 19 years. There might be opportunity to bring you back in a senior advisory role. The team misses your institutional knowledge. Translation, they were drowning without me. That's generous, I said, watching Apex's building across the valley. Unfortunately, I'm committed elsewhere now. We can be very competitive with compensation. Whatever you're getting, we'll beat it. I thought about the Titan partnership, the equity, the board seat, none of which Rick could truly offer. It's not about money. Rick never was. Then what do you want? Frustration crept into his voice. What did I want? Revenge had seemed simple at first. Make them suffer, make them regret discarding me. But building something new at Titan, I realized revenge alone wasn't enough. I wanted vindication. I want you to learn, Rick. But you're not capable of that. Don't be childish, Brad. Sometimes business requires hard decisions. Replacing me with Jason wasn't hard, Rick. It was easy. The coward's choice. Now you're facing consequences. His tone sharpened. If this is about Nellis, this is about 19 years I poured into building something meaningful. Something you risked for nepotism and shortcuts. You didn't value what you had. Someone else does. After long silence, he spoke with cold fury. You won't get away with this. Everything I'm doing is legal, Rick. I learned contract law watching you manipulate it for years. This isn't over. Actually, it was over the moment you decided I was disposable. You just didn't know it yet. I hung up, heart racing but spirits soaring. His desperation confirmed everything. They were failing without me. 3 days later, Lisa sent her most revealing text. F-22 contract, postponed indefinitely. Emergency board meeting. Jason being grilled on technical failures. Stock down 18%. Rick's legacy-defining project was collapsing under problems I would have caught immediately. That weekend, Curtis Palmer emailed me. Subject line, "You were right." The message contained board minutes revealing the emergency session to fire me had been scheduled 3 weeks in advance. Rick had lied about everything. The Nellis decision landed exactly as expected. Their evaluation committee recommended switching to Titan's platform, citing innovation, reliability, and relationship management. The contract, now worth $240 million with expanded services, would transfer when current agreements expired. Sandra was ecstatic. "This is just the beginning. With you leading client relations, we'll dominate the sector within 2 years." I raised my coffee cup. To correcting injustice, she clinked hers against mine. To people who refused to disappear when discarded. The next morning brought news I hadn't anticipated. Apex's stock dropped another 12% on the Nellis loss announcement. Analysts questioned company stability after Defense News reported that multiple contracts were under review due to quality control concerns. By afternoon, 3 more Air Force bases contacted me about consulting on their Apex contracts. The avalanche had begun, not because I was attacking Apex, but because I'd stopped holding it together. That evening, working late at Titan, I received one final text from Lisa. Rick submitted resignation. Board unanimous. Jason also out. Crisis management team taking over. I walked to my window, staring across the valley at Apex's building. 19 years of my life in that structure. 19 years they thought could be erased with 7 words. I hadn't set out to destroy Rick or Apex. I'd simply taken my value elsewhere, built something better, let natural consequences unfold. The most devastating revenge wasn't stealing clients or exposing mistakes, it was showing them what they'd lost. Rick had believed Apex was his creation. Now he understood the truth. I hadn't worked for Apex all those years. Apex had worked because of me. When I got home that night, Danny was waiting up, homework abandoned on the kitchen table. "Saw the news about Apex," he said quietly. "About their stock crash." "Yeah, you did that." "No, son, they did that to themselves. I just stopped fixing their mistakes." He grinned, and for a moment I saw Sarah in his smile. Mom would be proud. She would have been, not of the revenge, but of the choice to build something better, instead of just tearing down what hurt me. My phone buzzed with an email. The Nellis contract, finalized and ready for signatures. The first victory of many to come. I signed the document and looked at my son, this remarkable young man who'd learned that integrity matters more than comfort, that doing right sometimes costs everything, but it's still worth doing. "Your college tuition is secure," I told him. "I never doubted it, Dad. You always figure it out. Have you ever been underestimated? Replaced by someone less qualified but better connected? Watched years of loyalty get discarded for politics? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. What would you have done in my position? Taken Sandra's offer or tried something different? Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's building something better and watching them realize what they threw away. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything in the short term, but pays dividends you never imagined. If this story hit home, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories where this came from, real accounts of professional betrayal, workplace politics, and the sweet satisfaction of proving your worth when others counted you out. Because here's what I learned, your value isn't determined by the people who discard you. It's proven by the people who choose to build something great with you. They thought they were ending my story. Turns out they were just giving me a better beginning. Remember this. The people who fire you for your principles are the same people who'll beg you to come back when their shortcuts catch up with them. But by then, you'll have already built something they could never destroy. Your worth isn't measured by how desperate they get to keep you, but by how much better you become after they let you go.